This week on True Crime Travelers, 6 travelers are dead in 1 week. One British woman, 2 Australian women, 2 Danish women, and 1 American man after a night out in Vieng, Laos. Was it a serial killer, a terrorist act, or was it something more simple, like a drink? Today, we are covering one of the most disturbing cases that I've ever heard, so I'm going to need all of you to listen to the end. Welcome to True Crime Travelers, where we investigate suspicious murders and disappearances around the world, but from a traveler's perspective. We are Alexa and Emilia, award-winning travel experts and the authors behind the Solo Girls Travel Guide book series. We are obsessed with safety and true crime, but I promise we're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you. Today, I want you to remember our motto more than ever. We are not here to scare you. We are here to prepare you. The case we're talking about today scares even me. But when we talk about the things that scares us, we can talk about the dangers and we know what to look out for. This case takes place in Southeast Asia, where I am an expert. It is literally my job to study this region and teach people how to travel there. I lived in Asia for 8 years. Southeast Asia made me who I am. I went on a backpacking life for 8 years. This is a case that is shocking and terrifying and important to talk about. It's not going to be an easy one, but it's an important one. Hi, Em.
Hi, I love your bangs.
Hi. Thank you. New hair. I mean, you haven't traveled Southeast Asia yet, so a lot of things that I'm going to be talking about today, you're going to be learning about for the first time. So I want you to ask as many questions as you can, because I'm sure that the people listening have similar questions.
Yeah, I've only done Bali and Sri Lanka. I haven't done many of the big Southeast Asia destinations.
But you lived in Bali for what, a year?
A year, a little bit over a year.
Yeah, so you know about Arak, A-R-A-K, the homemade spirit in Bali, the one that I'm always like, we don't drink that. Like, we don't drink Arak. We don't drink homemade spirits. And in the Solo Girls Travel Guide, in our guidebook series, we talk about this all the time.
Oh, uh-huh.
Let's just get into it. Holly Bowles and Bianca Jones are best friends from Australia. They're 19, and they decided to have a once-in-a-lifetime big backpacking trip around Southeast Asia. Now, if you've ever backpacked Southeast Asia, you know it's beautiful beaches, it's cheap massages, street food, nights out, new people. It is so much fun. And you go with a very trusting heart. You're staying in these hostels where they're like, hey, come here, we'll take care of you. We've been doing this for 20 years. Don't worry, we've seen it all. We got you. Free shots, anyone? Free shots, shots. And then before you know it, you have hostels full of very drunk backpackers drinking buckets of what they think is probably bottled liquor, but in reality is sometimes, depending on the location, mixed with a homemade brew. A homemade brew that is known to give you headaches, make you nauseous, gives you the worst hangovers ever, and in severe cases can cause blindness, and in extreme cases can cause death. So Holly and Bianca, they made their way through Southeast Asia up into Laos. Now, crossing this border from Thailand into Laos, it doesn't feel like a big change. The scenery is very similar. The language you still can't read. The people are still of Southeast Asian descent. It feels just like you were in Thailand. But let me be very clear. Laos is not Thailand. Thailand is a country that runs on tourism, and they've been running on tourism since the 80s. They have made the mistakes in our parents' era. Our parents have already made all the mistakes in Thailand. Thailand tourism has caught up. Thailand tourism, yes, you guys, there are still sketchy things out there everywhere, but for the most part, Thailand tourism is not the same as Laos tourism. In Laos, they have been struggling for a while. It is one of the poorest countries in the region. It's one of the least visited by backpackers in the region. And in fact, I lived in Asia for 8 years. I never went to Laos. And you're going to find out why today. You're going to find out big whys today. So Keep that in mind, okay? We're not talking about the same thing. We're not going to paint Laos with the Thailand brush or the Vietnam brush. Laos is its own world in tourism, especially in Vang Vieng. Vang Vieng has been like the party central for a long time, and that is where our case takes place today. It's this kind of this jungle town in the middle of nowhere, and it feels kind of spooky and eerie because the only things to do there are party and float the river. And Vang Vieng, even though the case we're talking about takes place in 2024, Vang Vieng has a very dark past. And this is why I've never been called to go there, because I have so many friends that have gone to Vang Vieng, partied way too hard. Or I have a friend who even ended up in the hospital after a debaucherous night out that I now believe is linked to what we're talking about today. One of the big things to do in Vang Vieng in Laos is you go and you do tipsy tubing, which is there's this river, there's this river. You can rent these inner tubes and you go down and you sit in the inner tubes and you float down the river. Well, back in like 2011, 2013, 2015, this was a thing to do and it was out of control. Tipsy tubing would be like you go to a hostel, you take all these free shots. Everyone heads down to the river and they're already tipsy and they're drinking an alcohol that is making them extremely drunk extremely quickly. They're getting in the tubes and you can like hold hands with each other and you go over the river. But depending on the day, the season, the river is lower and higher. There's more rocks, there's less rocks. And when the water was higher, bars are along the river. They have these ropes that you go down and you grab onto the rope and you go in and you drink a bucket. They have like these bucket drinks, which I tell you guys never drink the bucket drinks. It's a bucket drink with a bunch of straws in them and you just chug it and you get wasted and you get back in the tube and you keep doing that and you keep doing that and you keep doing that. In 2011, 27 tourists died on this river.
27.
Yes, 27 people in this 1 year. And I do believe, if I find it, I'll put a link down below, but I do believe it was then the son of someone important who died. And they're like, we're shutting it down. So there was a moment in time where authorities or tourism or whoever it may be were like, hey, chill out. And so they did. Vang Vieng has stopped the insane tipsy tubing, but it hasn't stopped its partying on land. This takes us to Nana Hostel. This is a hostel. It's very quintessential backpacker hostel in Southeast Asia, but with less regulations. Nana Hostel is where Holly and Bianca, these two best friends having the trip of their life together, that is where they check in. And let me tell you about this hostel. So they check in this hostel. They have their backpacks on. And when you check into one of these hostels, you go into your dorm room. And these days, your dorm room is either like a mixed dorm or an all-female dorm. And pro tip, it is of my belief that the mixed dorms are actually cleaner than the female dorms because the girls just like throw their stuff everywhere because it's like girl time. But the guys are like kind of trying to impress the girls. So I usually just go into like a mixed dorm. So they throw their backpacks down, they get kind of settled, they might take a shower, and then they start chatting with other people in their room. And those people are like, hey, have you heard that there is free unlimited shots at this hostel every night for 2 hours? And the girls are like, oh, like, yeah, that sounds kind of familiar and that sounds fun. Why not? Like, we're here to party. It's Vang Vieng. Sounds great. And we're on a backpacker's budget. Free drinking? Hell yeah. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? It's not like we're going to die from these cheap shots, right? Right?
Well,
I'll just tell you guys that I have been this backpacker for sure. I've taken the free shots. I've drank the buckets. I've blacked out. I've made out with strangers. And I've just been like, what am I doing with my life? But at the same time, loved every minute of it.
and that's how the Solo Girls Travel Guide was born.
That is how the Solo Girls Travel Guide was born. The Solo Girls Travel Guide, our company, was born through my really reckless nights and learning like, oh shit, like I need to tell other women not to do the things that I've been doing. But at the same time, do it a little bit, still do it a little bit, but just do it safely and listen to this podcast. Okay, so back to the night of. This is the account of what happened on this very fateful night that ended up not affecting just Holly and Bianca, but ended up affecting, as you are going to find out, quite a few people in the backpacker town of Vang, Laos. Laos, Lao, I'm sure people are going to like give me shit about which one I'm saying. It's interchangeable. That night at Nana Hostel, the hostel manager says that he served around 100 guests this specific kind of vodka called tiger vodka. And everyone was taking shots of this tiger vodka. He says that he purchased it from a certified distributor and that there were no complaints at the hostel, that no one had an issue. Then what often happens is you start your party at the hostel with the free shots, and then you go out into town. But imagine how expensive that would be to give out free shots. You know? That's really expensive, right, Emmy? And
very.
Yeah, and at this point, I think the dorm beds are only like $10 a dorm. So that doesn't math, right? The math doesn't math. So the manager says Bianca and Holly were at his bar from like 8 to 10:30 playing card games. And they took the shots, and they did not go out and have some crazy wild night on the town. Apparently, maybe they did, but this is just according to the manager. So then, why? The next morning, were the girls still in their beds by, kind of a late checkout time? And the hostel was like, hey, are you guys okay? You're still sleeping. And that is when they found Holly and Bianca unresponsive in their hostel beds. The two girls were quickly rushed to a hospital in the capital, Vientiane, and then they were transferred to hospitals in Thailand. And again, this goes back to Thailand is not Laos. Thailand has world-class medical industry. But here's the confusing part for me, and kind of the sad part, is like if you and I were in an accident together, I'd want to be in the same hospital as you, right?
Yeah.
But they split the girls up. They sent Bianca to Udon Thani, to Bangkok Hospital in Udon Thani. And Udon Thani is right over the border from Laos. It's in an area called Isan. It is the poorest region of Thailand. Then they send Holly down to Bangkok, the capital of Thailand, to Bangkok Hospital in Bangkok. So the girls are at two separate hospitals. Now, I don't know if this is indicative of the kind of treatment you get in the capital versus not, but I mean, Bianca Jones, at 19 years old, on this backpacking trip of her life, died that night in Udon Thani.
Oh my God.
Meanwhile, Holly Bowles, 19, was on life support for a week. Okay? But it wasn't just Bianca and Holly. That morning in Vang Vieng, it was chaos. Because two other young backpackers were also found unresponsive in their hotel room after not checking out. This was Freya Sorensen and Anne-Sophie, whose name I am not going to pronounce right because they are Danish. They were also found unresponsive, transported to a hospital, quickly died. Then there was another woman, Simone White, 28 years old, from the UK, a lawyer, on a break from, crazy lawyer life. She also died that night. And then there's one that's a little bit mysterious to me. This is an outlier. This is a 57-year-old American man who obviously wasn't staying at the hostel, was found in his hotel room already dead with glass drinks around him. So that is at the end of one night. That is 6 travelers dead from doing something as simple as consuming shots.
6 in one night.
And this just happened. Like we're in 2024. This just happened.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Here's what's confusing. We're going to get into what was in this drink in a second and how did this drink get to these hostels in a second. But here's what's confusing. We have all these people that are not staying in the same hotel. I am not quite sure, and I would love the answers, if the Danish girls or the British girl were also staying at Nana. I cannot find this information just yet. Oh, and by the way, there are other people that were staying at Nana's hostel who have come out and said that they also were hospitalized. They also got sick from that very night, and they are lucky to have their lives. But what about the people that weren't staying there? And what about everyone else that took these shots? Because the manager of Nana Hostel has said, I served 100 people that night and there were no complaints. Like everyone was fine except for these girls.
You know what I'm thinking? We're talking about the foreigners who drank this alcohol, but I bet
Yeah.
many locals drank it too.
I don't think so.
Really?
Well, because it's if we're talking about like a bottle that's at the hostel, there's not going to be locals coming and drinking that bottle at the hostel. That hostel is for the foreigners.
Do you think nobody in the staff had like one drink?
I don't think so. So here's the funny thing about alcohol in Southeast Asia. Just because you go to a bar and you see a bottle in like a Grey Goose bottle, you're like, oh, Grey Goose. I know Grey Goose. I drink that all the time at home. I'll have one of those. What you don't know is that before that shift, the guy at the hostel, he probably took this home brew alcohol and poured it into the Grey Goose bottle. And maybe, Emmy, I don't know. Like, I've worked in hostels and I have been a bartender in Southeast Asia. And I know that sometimes alcohol is sketchy and I stick to beer. I don't know if the bartenders were taking any drinks. Here's the thing. While we don't have many answers of what happened that night, we do have a friend of Simone White, who's the lawyer. Her name is Bethany Clark, and she is also from the UK. And after this happened, she was also in the hospital, and she made a post on a Facebook group for backpackers, and she says, "Urgent, please avoid all local spirits. Our group stayed in Vang, Vieng, and we drank free shots offered by one of the bars. 6 of us who drank from the same place are in hospital currently with methanol poisoning." Now, methanol poisoning, we're going to get into what that is, but the headlines have been saying that there has been a mass drink spiking. And what do you think of, Emmy, when we say drink spiking?
That someone put something in your drink on purpose.
Right, that someone went and like put something in your drink on purpose. That's not what happens with methanol poisoning, you guys.
So then what is methanol poisoning?
Methanol poisoning is basically when you drink a bad batch of homebrew that has not been distilled properly.
Got it.
Get your like student hats on because I'm going to teach you what's going on here. Like I said, it's very expensive to give free shots out to a bunch of travelers. So what can you do to cut that cost but still attract all these travelers, still get them drinking and eating and, buying other things at your hostel and sticking around for the night? What can you do? Well, this guy down the road who he's got like this operation set up in his backyard where he's distilling alcohol. It's cheap alcohol and it hasn't, killed anyone yet. And you have been drinking this cheap alcohol since you were a teenager and you're like, yeah, it gives me a really bad hangover. But like, hey, I'm fine. These kids will be fine. We can just serve this. And that is what happens often in really cheap bars. I'm not talking about the Hyatt, the Marriott, the nice resorts. I'm talking about the really cheap bars, often like little shacks, like shack roofs and stuff. But what you don't expect is that one of the most popular hostels in Vang Vieng is going to be serving this to their customers. So methanol poisoning. Methanol is a form of alcohol, but it's also commonly used in cleaning and industrial products like paint thinners, antifreeze, fuel, dyes, and inks. This is not to be consumed. Methanol is a highly toxic substance and is often found in this counterfeit alcohol that we're talking about. And it makes you feel drunk, but not like a tequila drunk, not like a good drunk. It makes you feel dizzy and it makes you feel the epitome of inebriated, okay? And the problem with this alcohol is that consuming just 25 milliliters can be deadly. It looks like a spirit. It's clear and it doesn't hurt you right away. Rather, it can take up to 24 hours or as quickly as 5 hours, depending on how much you drink, for symptoms to start appearing. What happens quickly is that after drinking methanol, you might get nauseous and dizzy, but you might start vomiting and you might get diarrhea. These are the first signs that you might have methanol poisoning. But what happens behind the scenes, like within your body, is that this methanol starts to attack the soft tissues in your body. Your brain, your eyes, your liver, your kidney, and if not treated quickly enough, this will lead to death. And now, of course, you guys, these hostels are not intentionally poisoning their guests. Rather, they've been buying from a certain distributor for a while, and that distributor fucked up. And let me tell you how this gets fucked up, okay? It's not like the distributor tried to fuck it up either. No one wants to kill their client or their customer or their profit. I'm going to give you a quick science lesson. Okay, so when methanol is distilled, there is what is called the heads and the tails. These are the undesirable parts of a brew. You know when you put like oil and vinegar or oil and water into a bottle together and they separate? Something similar like this happens when you're home brewing this cheap alcohol. The heads is the first portion, and it contains the toxic compounds like methanol. And this is deadly, right? So the skilled distillers, they take off the head, okay? Then there's the tail portion, which is the bottom. And this has like the heavier alcohols and impurities, and it has like the bad flavors and severe hangovers. You take out that part. What these distillers are going after is what is called the hearts. And this is like the drinkable part. And you guys, it's not delicious. It has a funny taste, but it's so clear that if distilled properly, you can take it out, you can pour it into a vodka bottle, you can give it as shots to unsuspecting backpackers. They'll drink it, they'll get a terrible headache and a terrible hangover. So just for that reason, don't drink it. But when things go wrong, it is because a distiller did not remove the heads and the tails properly. And that is what has happened in this case. No one tried to do this on purpose, but the problem lies in trying to deceive backpackers, trying to deceive the public by giving them something that they otherwise would not consent to drinking.
Yeah, I think this is like a tale as old as time. I grew up in like a spring break town in Mexico. And, you know, it's, again, like that happens with tequila, with like so many spirits around the world. Cheap alcohol is never a good idea. Free flow alcohol means cheap alcohol, and that is never, ever a good idea.
Yeah, she's from Mazatlan. Like, she knows this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you actually bring up a huge important part. We're going to get back to talking about what's going on in Laos, but let's just talk about the issue at hand. You bring up a really important part because a lot of people are saying this is a Laos problem.
Mm-mm.
This is not a Laos problem. Using methanol around the world as cheap alcohol is, again, a tale as old as time. According to CNN, in 2019, more than 150 people were killed and 2 other hospitalized after drinking unregulated alcohol, known as like countries, you know, the countryside liquor or moonshine as we know it, in India's northeast. A year later, at least 11 people died after drinking this unregulated alcohol in the Philippines. This happens in the US. Oh gosh, this happens in the US. I think there's some stat like in 2011, like 1,700 people were poisoned in the US from methanol alcohol. But here's the problem. These things keep happening, so you'd think that regulations would be put in place, right? You'd think that after so many people have died around the world that this would be a really, really harsh line of no more. And that is where the problem lies, is because now you're going into an area with unregulated regulations, okay? More so than other places.
And in this case, has anyone been held accountable?
The governor of Vieng, he promised an investigation and he vowed to bring justice to those responsible for the deaths in the hostel. So just last week, 8 people were arrested at Nana's backpacker hostel, including the manager, who says, you know, no, I didn't do this. I didn't buy this bad alcohol. I promise. I bought this alcohol that I serve at this hostel from a reputable distributor. I bought it. It's just Tiger vodka and Tiger whiskey. It's the same stuff I always use. And then they're like, well, hey, then why did people get sick drinking here? And he's like, hey, I don't know, because listen, I served this to 100 people that night and no one else had a problem except for these few people. So we're at this standoff of the authorities being like, we know it was you, and this manager being like, but it wasn't me. Then we have the mystery of the other travelers who have died, who are out and about on the town in Vieng. So is it that this manager at Nana Hostel bought cheap alcohol and that cheap alcohol somehow got out of the hostel? Is that their theory? Or is it more likely that there was a bad batch distributed throughout the town in Vieng? And if that's the case, that is terrifying. But guess what? We don't have to wonder, because just very recently, within the last 24 hours, there has been a break in the case. The most popular vodka and whiskey to drink is Tiger vodka, Tiger whiskey. The authorities, the investigation has traced this bad alcohol back to this entire producer, this entire distributor. The owner of the factory has been arrested and the factory has been shut down. However, not shut down indefinitely. I read that it's been shut down until it can improve its production process. This is terrifying. This is terrifying to me because when you think bootleg alcohol, or you think like improperly distilled alcohol, you think it's from your cousin around the corner. You don't think it is from the major distributor. It just shows you how important codes and protocol and inspectors are. I mean, I don't want to say this could happen anywhere, but could it? Or did it happen in Laos because of their poor regulations? The world is fucked up in the pursuit of profit. Cutting corners, lying, swapping, corruption. But all I know is this. What I tell people all the time in every book that I've ever published: don't drink the free shots. Don't drink the cheap booze. You want reputable alcohol. You do not want to go and ruin your vacation because you would rather get the free shot than buy the $7 cocktail from like the nice hotel. Don't cut corners with your health and your safety. Don't cut corners with your liver, you know? Today's case is very different because we are not doing a huge investigation. Rather, we have a lot of warnings to tell you. I have some simple tricks and simple practices that you can apply to make sure that you can go and travel Southeast Asia and backpack Southeast Asia, because it is an incredible experience. And this is a region that definitely deserves your tourism and your time, but I want you to do it safe. And we're going to get into that right after this break. Welcome to the break. It's me. It's still me at the break. So I wanted to tell you guys, if you are a paranoid traveler, or if you are super safety conscious, if you are nervous like me, get my book before you go on a trip. This is the one-way ticket plan. Find and fund your purpose while traveling the world. And chapter 6 is called Safety and Scary Things. I have taken all of my safety protocol. I have put it in this chapter. I want you to read it, get a little freaked out, fine. Learn the lessons, absorb it, and then forget it. Because once you know the dangers to look out for, once you've kind of stamped this chapter on your brain, you are now going to be walking through your travels with a bit of a extra safety cautious filter. It won't take away from your joy. If anything, it should make you feel more empowered because you know what to do in any situation. You can get the one-way ticket plan on my website, alexa-west.com. I'll also leave a link down below. And I'm doing a bunch of giveaways on Instagram this month, including signed copies of this book. So if you want to do that, follow me at Solo Girls Travel Guide or True Crime Travelers on Instagram. All right, back to today's case. Bye.
I have my pen and paper ready. I'm ready to take notes of all of the safety travel tips.
Let's do it. Welcome to True Crime Travelers Safety Class. The travel lesson of the day, as we have in every episode. Emmy's holding up a sign that says,
Travel lesson number 1. Repeat after us. Do not take the cheap alcohol.
Do not take the cheap alcohol.
Actually, when it comes to tequila, there's a really good simple trick to know if you have been given cheap tequila. You just take a few drops. put it on your skin, and then rub it. And if it's sticky, that means that tequila is cheap. If it's not sticky, it's decent tequila. So that's an easy way to find out.
Where did we learn that? Who taught us that?
We did a tequila tasting class at the Four Seasons in Punta Mita. And the tequila sommelier taught us that.
I trust a tequila sommelier at the Four Seasons in Mexico. For sure. For sure. So there's something you can do to test it. But something else is literally just to avoid those free shots. What I do when I travel, I only drink the beer. If you and I go out to a bar together in Bali, I'm ordering a beer. I'm not ordering a shot. I'm not taking the risk unless I'm sitting at the bar and I see the bottle sealed being opened. Now, there's different kinds of seals. You guys know that there's like the plastic seal that you unscrew and it separates from the plastic, okay? That's a good sign. Another sign is it's expensive to import real alcohol into places like Thailand. So you'll see on the top of a bottle, you'll see often like a little pink sticker or like a little blue sticker. And this is the tax sticker. And that tax sticker indicates that this bottle was imported and it's real. And this import makes it more expensive, which is why people then distill it. But then the second thing you need to do is not only do you need to watch that bottle's seal be broken, you need to be aware that just because the sticker's on it or that it's in a Grey Goose bottle doesn't mean that it's actually Grey Goose or the real alcohol. So something you can do. In islands in Thailand, like on Koh Phi Phi, you can go and you can buy one of those big bucket drinks that everyone's drinking. My caution number one is don't do that. But if you're going to, because I know that you are, you can buy these buckets almost in like a kit. So you can buy the sealed fifth of alcohol of like the Sang Som whiskey. You can buy the sealed alcohol and the sealed can of Sprite and the ice, and they'll mix it for you together in front of you. This is a green light. Or if you want to get drunk on cheap booze, go to 7-Eleven, grab, or whatever, mini mart, grab a bottle that's already sealed, drink that alongside your beers for the night. I don't want you getting blacked out, but again, I did it. It was fun. It's a rite of passage. You're going to do whatever you do. Just make sure you have travel insurance. Safety Wing travel insurance is like a must. If you go to the hospital, you need Safety Wing travel insurance. We will leave a link down below. But these are my rules. Don't just take the free shots because a hostel is giving it to you. A rule that we say all the time in this podcast is just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Just because the friendly bartender is offering it to you or your hostel mate who stayed here for 3 nights and has said like, oh, it's fine, I've been drinking here for 3 nights. Don't trust him because as we've seen, it only takes one bad batch of alcohol to really fuck you up. Anything else you would put in here, Em?
Yeah, and also like choose your places. If you want to have shots or like a cocktail instead of a beer, do so at a more formal bar or place. If you're at a beach shack with like a thatched roof and like your feet on the sand, stick to a beer.
I agree. And if you want to take a shot, you're going to have to pay the nicer price. So here's what to do if you do suspect that you have been poisoned with methanol. Let's say you do go out and you take a shot and you start feeling really sick. Here's what you can do. If you suspect you have methanol poisoning, the first thing you should do is drink a beer. I know that sounds crazy, but basically this means that your liver is going to start competing for ethanol. So ethanol is regular alcohol. You want the ethanol if you want to drink alcohol. Ethanol competes with the methanol for the same enzymes in the liver.
Basically, ethanol good, methanol bad.
Yes. And when you drink this beer, it buys you some time. It's not going to cure it. You got to get your ass to the hospital immediately. At the hospital, they are going to give you some things that I cannot pronounce. I don't even know how to pronounce these things. But it's basically they're going to be giving you these specific antidotes for methanol to try and stop this degeneration of your soft tissues in your liver and your kidneys.
Okay.
Okay?
Note it.
Okay. Noted. So that's where our case is today. We have the death of 6 travelers and we have a industry issue. If you guys go on any Reddit post or any Facebook group and you start searching in this topic, you're going to find so many travelers that have said, oh my gosh, I stayed there and I had 5 shots and I was hungover for 5 days. Or, oh my gosh, I had, the craziest night of my life up there. I woke up with a bump on my head, my clothes missing, and I only took 2 shots. This is not an isolated incident. What is isolated is how extreme it is. And again, this case, we're covering it because it is so rare. It is extreme and it's rare if it hits the headlines. But the sad part is that Holly and Bianca and Simone and Freya and Anne-Sophie and John, none of them knew that this was a red flag to watch out for because no one was talking about it. And that is one of the reasons why we are doing this damn podcast, is because with the Solo Girls Travel Guide, it is literally our job every single day. We get messages from readers in other parts of the world, and it is our job to keep them safe. So we've been talking about it in these books. If you have the Solo Girls Travel Guide books, you're going to know what to watch out for. You're going to know the dangers. You're going to know the safety protocol, because I had a revelation, Emmy, that I am so obsessed with safety and danger because I lived in Southeast Asia for so long.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense because just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Like, there are tons of things available to backpackers and travelers that they can do that actually puts them in harm's way. So one of the things I want you guys to do before you travel to a destination, a simple Google search. The dangers of Laos, the dangers of Brazil. Go and just do a quick search. Do a quick search of these things. Be extra cautious. Be like me.
Yeah, like there's apps for that. There's an app called GeoSure that allows you to check like safety, like danger issues on a place live. So there's a lot of ways that you can find out how safe the place you're going to is. And again, we're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you. But imagine like spending your savings, taking the time to go on a trip, and then getting like, because you did a Google search or because you didn't take some very basic precautions, having your trip ruined because something like this happened to you. Like, just don't. Mm-hmm. Just take very basic precautions and have the time of your life.
Yeah, totally. And that's that. That's it for the day. This is so fresh and so new that let's hope that we don't see other headlines popping up about this. So share this podcast with your friends. Get a Solo Girls Travel Guide to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, to Vietnam, to Cambodia. I cannot tell you about Laos, and I don't think I don't know if I will. At least if I know that if I'm going to Laos, the reason why I haven't been is because I don't want to go to Vieng. I don't want to go to Vientiane. I don't want to go to Luang Prabang. Laos is a beautiful country that I've always been told you need 2 weeks to properly explore. And I'm talking about like going out into like in the jungles and the rolling hills. Like, that's the Laos that I want to see. I don't want to be in Vang Vieng. I don't want to be in these dangerous party places. So I'm not saying don't go. What I'm saying is don't go there to party.
Again, there's other places that you can go party or you're going to be safer, I guess.
Go party in Thailand. It's so much better. Or go party in Bali. I just bought my flight to Bali and I leave on December 23rd. So follow me at Solo Girls.
I'm so excited for you.
I know. So follow me at Solo Girls Travel Guide and you'll see all my Bali adventures.
I'm going to be dying of FOMO.
I'll call you every day. I'll video call you every day. Don't worry.
You better. Okay, that's it for today. Let us know which destinations and cases you would like us to cover in the comments or at hola@truecrimetravelers.com. We would love to hear your thoughts, your theories about the cases that we cover and which places you want to travel with us to. So see you all next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Travel safe.
This podcast delves into true crime cases, and we want to remind our listeners that all individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The opinions expressed here are solely those of myself and Emilia. We strive to research thoroughly and provide accurate and up-to-date information, but please be aware that some details may evolve over time. We encourage you to do your own research and verify the information presented. Thanks for listening.